Hello, 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 and welcome to Sunday school time, to children's sermon time for Easter Sunday. You know what Easter's about, right? You remember this story? Should we go over it together just to be sure I've got it right? Okay, you listen really carefully and you let me know. You can email me, you can send me stuff if you think that I mixed something up. Because that happens, doesn't it? Okay, so everybody was really sad. Jesus had died. The people who loved him were sad. The people who wanted him to do something wonderful were sad. The people that he'd healed were sad. The people that he taught were sad. Everybody was sad. Jesus was dead. It looked like the end of the story. So, was it the end? Here's the part that I know you already know. No, it wasn't the end of the story. Not with Jesus. For sure not with Jesus. So, when Jesus died, and he really did die, you know. He was really dead. He wasn't mostly dead or somewhat dead or partially dead. He was dead. When Jesus died, it was on a Friday afternoon. And because of the rules of that time, because of the way they did things at that time, they had to very quickly take him down off the cross, and they had to quickly wrap up his body, and they had to quickly put it in a tomb. A tomb is a place where you put dead bodies. They had to quickly put it in a tomb, and they put a big stone in front of the tomb to keep anybody from messing with it, to keep anybody from hurting or stealing Jesus' body. I don't know why anyone would think of doing something that awful. But anyway, that's why they did it. And then everyone had to go back to their homes. They had to be back in their homes by sunset on Friday evening. And they couldn't come out of their homes until sunset on Saturday evening, right? It wasn't exactly like what we have now with the shelter-at-home rules, but sort of. People had to go home, and they couldn't do much during that time from Friday night to Saturday night. They mostly just sat. They mostly just thought. They mostly just prayed. And Jesus' friends and family, they mostly just cried. So on Saturday night, when the sun set, some women who loved Jesus decided that they were going to go and take a little better care of his body. And there are reasons why they did this that we can talk about when you're a little older. But they went and they got spices, and they got sweet-smelling gums and balms, and they were going to go to the tomb, and they were going to rub those spices on Jesus' dead body as a way of loving him, as a way of showing him respect. So Saturday night, these women bought all those things, and then they went to bed, and Sunday morning they woke up really early, and they were going to go out to the tomb really early and get this handled. And on the way to the tomb, they didn't think Jesus was going to be alive, right? They were going to rub his dead body with these spices. They were going to take care of him one last time. On the way to the tomb, they thought to themselves, wait a minute, they put a big rock in front of the tomb. How are we going to move that big rock? It took a whole lot of really strong men to put it in place. And there's just us three women. What are we going to do? Well, they must have guessed that there'd be someone there to help them, because they kept going. And when they got there, the stone was moved already. That's puzzling. And they looked into the tomb, into this cave, into this place where dead bodies go, and they didn't see Jesus there. They saw an angel there. And the angel said to them, just sort of matter of fact, just conversationally, hey, you're looking for Jesus of Nazareth. He was crucified. He's not here. He's been raised. Look, that's right there. That's where they put him. But he's not here. So go and tell his disciples that he's been raised. Go and tell Peter that he's been raised, and that they should go to Galilee like he told them, and he will meet them there like he promised them. Have you ever heard anything like that before? That someone who is dead is alive? Is going to do the stuff that they were always going to do, is going to keep all their promises, is going to do all that stuff? Is that not the coolest thing you have ever heard? I think so too. And do you want to know something else that's cool about it? I'm telling you this because you're very smart and you think deep thoughts. I know that sometimes you probably wonder what happens to a person when they die. Do they just stop being? What happens to them? And I know you've heard from your parents, your grandparents, that people go to heaven. That's a beautiful thing for you to have in your heart and in your head. But there are questions, aren't there? What really goes on when we die? Well, because of this story that we've just been talking about, we've got some answers. And we put it together with something else that Jesus told his disciples. Remember, those are the guys who followed Jesus around. We put those together and we can have answers for you and for me that maybe make us feel a little safer. Maybe let us feel a little happier thinking about some of the big questions in life. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. Jesus says that in his Father's house are many mansions, right? God's house is enormous. The whole world is part of God's house, right? Heaven is part of God's house. All of the other stars, all of the other planets, all of the other galaxies, the whole universe is part of God's house. God's house is very, very big. And Jesus said before he died, he told his disciples that he was going to prepare a place for them to be. That wherever he was, they'd be also. Well, that's a pretty big promise, isn't it? But how do we know that Jesus could keep that promise? How do we know that he's able to do that for us? Well, because of this story that we just talked about, that Jesus lived and then died and then came back. The dying didn't undo him. The dying didn't destroy him. He was Jesus while he was alive. He was Jesus while he was dead. And he's Jesus now that he's alive again. This is how I think about it, right? Using Jesus' story of God's big house. Right now I live in this part of God's big house. Someday, I don't know when, I'm going to die. And I'll move to another part of God's big house. And probably, almost for sure, there's going to be a time where I live in one part of God's big house and you still are living in this part of God's big house. But I'm still in God's house. I'll still be me. I'll still be alive. And you'll still be you. And you'll still be in God's house. And you'll still be alive. We're just separated a little bit. Like when you're in the kitchen and mom's in the bedroom. You can't see each other. It's even hard to hear each other. But you're both in the house. And you're both alive. And you're both fine. Right? When I die, whenever that is, you remember that I'm still in God's house and that someday we'll be together in God's house. We'll see each other in God's house. Jesus shows us that we don't just stop existing when we die. Jesus shows us that we still are us, that we'll still know each other and remember each other and be able to be talking to each other and with each other and eating with each other. Everything that we can do now, we'll do again. And then Jesus proves that all that is true by coming back to life. You don't have to be afraid of anything. There's nothing in the whole world that can hurt you or take you out of Jesus' hands. There's nothing that can take you out of God's house. And today we remember that even dying doesn't take us out of God's house. that we belong to God. You belong to God. Today, tomorrow, forever. Jesus was alive, then he was dead, and he's alive again. And that's how it's going to go for me. That's how it goes for everyone. Right now we're alive, and the world is beautiful and filled with light and love. Right now we thank God for all of his blessings. And right now we practice not being afraid. Know that I love you. I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.